Hello, so today we are going to talk about book recommendations, specifically books based on similar feelings to certain horror films. So if you like a particular horror film, you will probably like the book I'm going to recommend you. So let's get started with, if you like the film Ready or Not, or if you like the film Saw, you might be interested in the book Guillotine. In which a protagonist dates a rich man who is really unpleasant, but despite his unpleasantness, she basically deals with him in the hopes that she can get an internship from his mother, who works for a fashion magazine, basically. It hints at this family, this rich family called the Ruskins, being awful, but that awfulness ramps up quite quickly, and we realise very soon that they're actually really horrible people, and it's kind of a eat the rich scenario. It's very like cat and mouse when we have a kind of turning of the tables between the rich and their servants. There's running around an island, so it feels very much like Ready or Not in that respect. We also have lots of extreme like Saw trap deaths, which is why I say it's a bit like Saw. It's quite fun. It's also really short. So if you're in a reading slump or you're not super into reading, then I would really recommend this one as well for that. Okay, so next one. If you like the film Possessor, you might like Our Wives Under the Sea. So in this, the protagonist's wife returns from a submarine expedition. She has been gone for a very, 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 very long time, much longer than expected. And when she comes back, she's basically changed. She's not quite herself anymore. The reason I say it's like Possessor is because it has a very similar tone. There's like this slow, creeping dread, a sense of discomfort, a sense of there being an imposter. And there's also body horror elements. It's not quite as extreme as Possessor, but it is beautifully written, and it's also very interesting to see like the relationship dynamics in this one in particular. So I do really recommend this one. It was one of my favourite books, if not my favourite book I read last year. The next one is, if you liked 28 Days Later or 28 Years Later, I recommend Handling the Undead. This is by the same writer who did Let the Right One In. I think this one's quite underrated, and I've seen a lot of really harsh reviews for this, but I actually think it's really well done. The dead are waking up in Stockholm, and we follow several different families, and we have these different threads of dealing with loss and grief. It's much more about family drama and facing the like issues that come with grief, and trying to get over the loss of somebody. This is more central to the narrative, and I would say to the horror as well than the actual undead. So in that respect, it's quite like 28 Days and 28 Years, because that is really more about the interpersonal dramas, with it being Danny Boyle. Obviously, he does a lot of drama. That's what I would say for this one as well. It's a bit longer than the other two I recommended. So if you're more into books that really like immerse you in a story, this one gives it a lot more time, and it's really well written. Again, if you like the film Ginger Snaps, then you might like Such Sharp Teeth. This is by Rachel Harrison, who is a really good horror writer. She often writes from a female perspective, and the reason I say that you might like this if you like Ginger Snaps is because it's a werewolf story, but from the female perspective, which we don't see enough of. We often see the male perspective in those kind of films. Maybe less so now, we see more of this, but this one's really nice mix of horror, but also it's quite fun. It's quite easy to read. It's quite easy to like understand where the characters are coming from. It's quite a nice length, as you can see here. It's not too short and brief. It's also not too long and arduous. The protagonist figures out what she wants from her life, and there's like a romance plotline as well. If you're into romance, this might be like a nice way to dip your toes into horror if you like romance, but you're not sure if you like horror or not, this is a really good one for that too. The next one I want to talk about is if you liked You Might Be the Killer or Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon. You might like I Was a Teenage Slasher by Stephen Graham Jones. The protagonist basically becomes infected with like a slasher disease, so against his will he becomes a slasher. And it's quite an interesting book because it's very self-aware. It's aware of the tropes and it plays with the tropes of the slasher genre. And the tone in parts feels very classic slasher, so you probably also enjoy this if you're like into Friday the 13th, Halloween and all of that kind of thing as well. But it's just a bit more modern and does a bit more with the concept, considering the fact that the idea of slashers is so well known and overdone now. It's also by a really, really strong writer. This is probably not my favourite of his, actually. I recently read Buffalo Hunter Hunter, which he wrote, and it has a Native American vampire as like the centre of that story, and I really, really enjoyed that. That was actually much better than this one, but you can't compare that to anything because it's so much its own concept. So I just recommend this writer in general as well. If you like horror, he's really, really good at what he does. If you like colour out of space, I might suggest Girls of Little Hope, which is a little bit out there. There's some connection, but it's also very much its own thing as well. So there's 3 girls that are friends. 2 of the girls come back covered in blood, no memory of what happened, and the other one's missing. So that's like a main part of the plot is what's gone on there, and you gradually figure it out. There's body horror elements, which is why I mentioned Colour Out of Space. I don't want to spoil anything, but that's the reason why there's a link. And also, like, yeah, if you look at the cover, you can see there's kind of a visual comparison there with the same kind of pinky purples. It's a lot more about the girls and their friendship and their relationships and their lives than I would say Colour Out of Space is about the characters. So there are some differences there, but still, I think you might like this one if you liked Colour Out of Space. If you're into Frankenstein, I would suggest Poor Things. Obviously, Poor Things is a film as well. In fact, my copy of the book has the film. You know, I mean, that's Emma Stone, obviously. So, yeah, there's a film of this as well. But I think it's interesting to actually read the book too. And it's, if you've not read the book, or watched the film, this is really worth looking at full stop because it's a different perspective on things. Again, like I've said before, just switching things up with a female perspective, which is always quite interesting and refreshing for me personally. So you get a sense of like her freedom. It's very different from Frankenstein's monster. She seems actually quite liberated and happy in her existence. It's got a more amusing and lighter tone as well than Frankenstein. Frankenstein is a brilliant book, so you should read that if you haven't. But this is a really nice one. And also, if you're like, oh, Frankenstein is a classic, it's a bit intimidating, it's a bit long-winded. This one's really nice because it's a bit sillier. So I think it's a bit more accessible in that respect as well. And then finally, this is a bit of a random one, to be honest, but I watched Berberian Sound Studio recently. I was a bit disappointed by the film, but I know Mark Commode likes it, and various other people seem to really enjoy it. So I thought maybe if you like that, or maybe Censor, you might like Silver Nitrate. This follows 2 down on their luck characters who work in TV, film industry, and they get caught up in basically in the production of a cursed film by an occult Nazi, kind of, it's weird sort of synopsis, but you gradually become more wrapped up in the chaos. The film itself is at the centre of the plot, so in that respect it's very similar to Berberian Sound Studio and Censor. Goes further than Berberian Sound Studio, so if you were a bit disappointed in like, oh, that's a cool concept, but it's not gone very far, this does go further with the concept. For me, I still didn't love this. I think there is an audience for it though, which is why I'm mentioning it now. especially because it's by the same writer who did Mexican Gothic, and I know that that was really, really popular. I've not read that one. Maybe I'll give it a go, but if you liked her writing, you might well be into this as well. So there you go. Those are all my recommendations for now. I might do a second part if people are interested. Maybe I'll do a part about other genres. I did horror just because I read a lot of horror. I even went all out with my I put my Scream earrings and my Scream hoodie today just to sort of show the theme of the day is definitely horror. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much.